Hello again. I'm very pleased to be back. We are getting close to the end of the video presentations, to the end of the course. I want to thank you very much for hanging in there. I know everyone has a busy life and it's difficult to make time for things like this, so thank you very much. As you know, this course is called Social Entrepreneurship, a Grassroots Revolution. Today, I'm in part 3, and this is the last part of the key steps in project development. But first, I would like to be sure that everyone is aware that we have a MOOC web address. Everything that's important about this course will be able to be found at that address. Also, we do have a Facebook page. All you need to do is search for Social Entrepreneurship Program. And also, as those of you who have listened to other presentations that I've made, as you know, there is an optional book. Ordering information is at the Facebook page and at the MOOC site. It's very important that everyone know that this is not a required book, that this is entirely optional for those who would like to have it. In the last presentation, I discussed the 8th step in the project development program. That involved writing one goal and 2 or 3 objectives. We are now ready to continue. Number 9 in this list for the report is identify all important tasks that must be performed to make your project a success. This section of your report is sometimes called activities or procedures. In this class, I'd like to call these procedures. Procedures are tasks that staff will perform, such as rent office space, prepare a learning curriculum, network with community organizations, and another example is recruit volunteers. Notice that the procedures are not focusing on client behavior. Procedures are focusing on the staff activities within the organization in charge of the social entrepreneurship project. Recall that objectives refer to client behaviors, and here we're talking about procedures. Procedures refer to staff behaviors. As you write your project development report, you will probably have no organization. You are still planning. No problem. The project development report often precedes the existence of our organization. However, social entrepreneurship is open to anyone, and existing nonprofits are a good source of new projects that have found new ways to help people in need. And so people who are currently working within an existing nonprofit may be very interested in creating one of these reports to outline the key necessary steps to make a project a success. So some of you, I assume, are not working with a nonprofit right now, and so you do not have an organization. It's fine for you to be preparing this report before an organization exists. At the same time, some of you may be with a nonprofit or some other type of organization that is interested in social entrepreneurship work. You might have your organization. Either way is fine, but I wanted to mention to the people who don't have an organization that even though right now you're talking about the staff that will be a part of your organization, it's okay for you to not actually have an organization right now. The list of procedures or staff activities might be long. It is good to be as comprehensive as possible in the final draft of your project development project. Number 10, the next item in our report. Identify staff positions necessary to conduct the procedures. Assign tasks to the positions you have identified. And an important point will be to distinguish between paid and volunteer positions. So the last item that we talked about was procedures. These are staff activities. The 10th item is actually identifying the positions that we anticipate having and assigning tasks to them. Number 11, determine the total cost of your planned project. And at this point, as I was preparing these slides, I was thinking about how involved this report can be. We're on step 11, and this report is becoming more detailed, especially when we talk about determining essentially all of the costs of our planned project. That's a very detailed point. And so I'd like to step back just a second and share an idea. If your planned project is simple, like a running club for people at a homeless shelter, you should be fine at this stage in developing this report. But if your project is large and complex, then you might be overwhelmed right now. If you are, I understand. I would like to emphasize the importance of simplicity when we start a project and when we start our planning of a project. I encourage simplicity, as I've mentioned several times previously in my presentations. If your original project idea is too big and you are feeling overwhelmed right now as you are thinking about or in the stages of preparing this report, how about taking just a small piece of your original idea to make it manageable? That's just a suggestion, just a thought. A starting point for determining costs is to go back to your list of procedures, those activities that the staff must take in order to make the project a success. The list of necessary activities or procedures is our guide for determining what must be purchased. And of course, well actually not of course, but I'd like to remind you that earlier in my discussion of this report, I was encouraging two stages. With stage one being you walking through this report fairly quickly and getting a feel for all of these steps in this report. Stage two is the more detailed, leading up to a final draft report, which could be very long and it probably will be very detailed. But my point is that you keep in mind that right now in this course I'm wanting it not to be too difficult for you. Number 12, identify sources of income to fund the costs of your project. Also, identify amounts of money expected from each source of income. We've talked about these points before in earlier presentations. Sales of items or a service. What can you sell? Try to find something to sell so that you will not be fully dependent on donations and grants. I'd just like to mention again that in my opinion, there are many, or maybe I should say some, but maybe it is many, nonprofits that do not think enough about trying to sell something. Sell either an item or a service. And as a consequence of not having anything to sell, they are very dependent on grants and donations. I do want to mention, it's very clear to me that some projects do not lend themselves to selling maybe anything. The project you have selected, it might be one of those. There may simply be no good ideas for something to sell. But a lot of projects do have some opportunity for something to be sold. And sometimes we need to tease those out. We need to think. We need to strategize. We need to innovate on something that might be sold. So to me, that's an important point. The other two options, main options for income would be donations and grants. 13, explain the details of how you will document that your project is accomplishing what it is intended to accomplish. The highest quality projects periodically collect data to measure the extent to which they are doing what they set out to do. For our project involving elderly refugees learning English, how shall we measure our project's success? So this is a question that I actually want to pose to you right now, and I wish that I were at the front of a class and that you were all present and I could ask you and wait for some responses. Unfortunately, that is not the situation. But the question to you is, how about, the issue that we're looking at is how can a project determine the extent to which it has been successful? And so if we're working with the example of elderly refugees learning English, I'm posing the following question. How about using the number of classes conducted as maybe the primary measure of the extent to which we are accomplishing what we want to accomplish in our project? Although this is a reasonable example of statistic, a number to include in a report, my answer to the question, is this a good measure of our success? My answer is no. This is absolutely unacceptable as a measure of the success of our project. If we're talking about the kind of project that I'm talking about, teaching English to refugees, even though this is a common measure that some nonprofits use, it is totally unacceptable in most cases. So if that won't work as a measure to determine how successful we've been in accomplishing what we've set out to accomplish, how about this? How about number of clients served? Is this what we're after? Is this the kind of measure that will determine whether we've accomplished what we have set out to accomplish? My answer is, again, no. This is normally totally unacceptable, even though this is a common measure in nonprofits that don't understand the principles that I've been talking about in this class. Now, number of classes conducted and number of clients served, that is valuable data. That should be recorded. That's related to our work. That's an important bit of information. So I'm not saying it's not important. What I'm saying is that is not what we need to determine the extent to which we have done what we said we're going to do. In our project development report, we need to use our objectives to test our project success. If we have well-stated objectives, then we simply follow where they take us. So what I'm saying here is that the place to find what kind of data we need to collect in order to determine the extent to which we have done what we've said we were going to do, the place to find that data is, or at least the place to find the kind of data that we need to collect, is in our objectives. Because our objectives are the most clear, detailed statements that we have that have indicated what it is we want to accomplish. So, in order to determine what data we need to determine the extent to which we've accomplished what we said we're going to accomplish, all we need to do is go to our objectives. And if our objectives are well stated, they will lead us to what we need. Of course, we need to keep in mind from the very beginning of a project what our objectives are, because we should be collecting data along the way in many cases. So let's look at our process objective again. That objective was as follows. At the end of the first month of classes, all participating elder refugees will have attended at least 75% of all class meetings. Okay, so what will we need to test this? I'm going to leave this slide up for just a couple more seconds so you can look at that. At the end of the first month of classes, all participating elder refugees will have attended at least 75%. Okay, all right, so we need data to test that objective. We will need attendance sheets. We will need to tabulate the attendance sheet information into a table with the frequency of each elder's attendance. We will need to calculate the attendance percentage for each elder by dividing the number of sessions attended by the number of classes offered. Remember, we are writing an explanation in this report. We are writing an explanation of what we will do to document our success if our project is conducted. But the project hasn't been conducted yet, and so we should be writing in the future tense. If we plan 3 courses, or actually 3 classes per week with 4 weeks in the month that's referred to in that objective, then there will be 12 classes in the month. Our objective stated that all elders will attend at least 75% of the classes held in that month. And so 75% of the 12 classes held in that month is 9. So our objective is saying that all elders will attend at least 9 of the 12 classes in the first month. We will indicate in our project development report that if the data on the attendance sheets shows that all participants attend at least 9 classes in that first month, then this objective will have been attained. The point is that one of the major points that I'm on right now is that our objectives are the key to helping us determine what data we need to determine the extent to which we have done what we said we were going to do. For the other objective, we follow a similar procedure. That objective stated, at the end of the course, all elder refugees attending our English class will score at least 70% on a comprehensive English quiz over material covered. Okay, so what data do we need to test this objective? We're saying at the end of the course, all the refugees attending will score 70% on a test. Okay, in our project development report, we write that we will prepare an English test, administer the English test to our clients, score the English test, record the score for each client. Also, we will determine if all clients score at least 70%. If we find from the data that all clients meet this condition, then we report that our objective will have been attained. The big points here are, we will use client performance to test the success of our project. I just had a thought I'd like to share, and that is, I posed 2 questions to you earlier. Could we use number of classes conducted as a measure of our success? And I said no. Because number of classes conducted, that's something that our agency does. Could we use number of clients served as our measure of success? And I said no. Neither of these is referring to client behavior. And the point that I'm on right now, number one, the big points here are, number one, we will use client performance to test the success of our project. Number two, each objective will indicate what client data we will collect. Number three, in our project development report, we explain the steps we will take to analyze the client data and test each objective. How are you holding up? So far I'm doing okay. I hope you're doing okay also. It is with pleasure that I announce that I just have one more step in this report that we're working on, and it's a very quick one. It's a very easy one. Number 14, prepare an appendix into which supporting information and documentation will be placed. Those are the 14 steps for this report that I've been talking about, the project development report. I've covered these 14 steps in 3 presentations. I do have an obligation right now as a teacher to summarize each, just list, it's very brief. I have an obligation to list each of those 14 points. If you want to press the off button on the device through which you are observing this presentation, I would understand. If you'd like to stay around, I'd prefer that you do, because it's a quick summary of what we've been covering in the last 3 presentations. But I do understand that this gets a little bit long sometimes. So here's a quick summary of the key parts of what I've been covering in the last 3 presentations, the key parts to the project development report. Number 1, identify the people and their location. Number 2, explain all unmet needs of these people. Number 3, explain the need on which you will focus. Number 4, explain existing agency work on the problem that you have selected. Number 5, explain how your project plan is different from existing agency work. 6, identify strengths and weaknesses in your plan. 7, refine and try to improve your plan if possible. 8, provide 1 goal and 2 to 3 objectives for your project. 9, identify important tasks that must be performed. 10, identify staff positions. 11, determine the total cost of the project. 12, identify sources of income. 13, explain how we will document success of the project. And 14, the appendix. That's a big report. That's a detailed report. Just to remind you one more time, in the full report is inappropriate for this short class. What I consider to be important in this class is for you to walk through or run through each of those steps. Hopefully you have a project idea. You can apply those steps to your idea. And what I'm after in this short class is that you just get a feel for each of those stages of this report. And then later, if you decide, whenever the time is right in your life, if and when you decide that you want to try to make a project idea, a social entrepreneurship idea, a reality, that's when you would take probably much more time, do more research, do a lot more thinking, and provide the detail. So, that concludes my presentation today. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to the next time.